Blockchain revolution. You've probably heard of the word blockchain. Maybe you've heard about blockchain for the first time in some conversation related to Bitcoin. But for a while now, this word blockchain has spread everywhere. You hear about blockchain for issuing certificates, blockchain for keeping records of all types of production steps in the supply chain, blockchain for selling digital art, NFTs. But what really is this blockchain thing? Why do so many people treat this technology as revolutionary? And is it really the best option to be used in applications that are not related to money or cryptocurrencies? These are some of the questions that we can answer after reading the book Blockchain Revolution: How the Technology Behind Bitcoin and Other Cryptocurrencies is Changing the World, by Don Tapscott and Alex Tapscott. So in today's Arata Academy Summary, we're going to see the explanations from the authors of this book about blockchain, and we're also going to draw our own conclusions about the use of this technology today. Take note, this is the summary of a book. In our summaries, we only seek to summarize the message of the author. But exceptionally, we will clarify that there are a few aspects of the blockchain that we particularly disagree with. You can read the full disclaimer before proceeding. Blockchain is a trusted global platform powered and managed by mass collaboration. Blockchain revolution is divided into three major parts. The first part talks about the revolution brought about by blockchain, explaining how the technology works. The second part talks about the transformations that blockchain has already brought. And the third part talks about the promises for the future and also the risks related to this technology. To put the ideas in context, you have to remember that this book was published in 2017, the year when there was a lot of hype around blockchain. Therefore, the excitement of the authors must be understood within this context. In order for you to understand how there is a conceptual error in the general public's understanding of the word blockchain, you can watch our episode number 15 of the Money Arata series that goes more into detail. To understand this book, we need to understand what exactly blockchain is. And to talk about blockchain, we need to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first viable digital currency to be invented. It was created in 2008 with the publication of a paper signed by Satoshi Nakamoto. This paper brought the idea of a decentralized, encrypted digital currency that didn't depend on a central authority to be issued or controlled. It also innovatively solved the problem of double spending, the problem that until then there was no way to make digital assets scarce. Think, for example, of a digital file that I can send you by email or instant messaging. Think I have a PDF here on my computer. I send the PDF to you by email. When that happens, I actually send you a copy of the file. Now I have the PDF and you also have the same PDF. Of course, a digital currency cannot work like that, otherwise there would be no scarcity and nobody would value it as money. So what Satoshi Nakamoto did was to create a technology with true scarcity that is not controlled by a central authority, but by the entire network of users. This revolutionary idea, this creation by Satoshi Nakamoto, is blockchain, is the technology behind Bitcoin. To start understanding what blockchain is, you can think about a database. But instead of this database being centralized on a computer that is managed by a central authority, this database is distributed on computers of all the participants of a network in a decentralized way. Some network participants can feed this database with more blocks of information, but these blocks need to comply with certain rules so they can be added to the database. And once they're added, this block now is linked to the previous information block, forming a chain. All network participants can check this chain at any time with all the blocks already there being generated in the network history because all the data is public. Another possible analogy is with the ledgers that are used in business accounting to record inputs and outputs. But instead of having an accountant that is responsible for making this record, all transactions are recorded by the users themselves. That's why blockchain is a technology that allows reliability on the internet in a decentralized way. This is the revolution brought about by the blockchain. It allows for trusted transactions that happen between two or more participants. These transactions are authenticated, not by a central authority, but the mass collaboration of all the network users. Without a central authority, there is no one with too much power to be changing the rules of the game, to control what people are doing, what they're able to do, or to subjugate other participants in that network. Without a central authority, there is also no single point of failure that could be exploited by hackers, viruses, or other malicious actors. The book classifies the blockchain as a protocol of trust because it allows records according to predetermined rules that are enforced by the network participants themselves. It transforms the network of information into the Internet of Value. Furthermore, the blockchain was created as an open source program that can be downloaded for free by anyone, which can even be modified, adapted for specific uses, and also improved by mass collaboration. Therefore, blockchain has the potential for many applications and has been tested for purposes that are not necessarily directly linked to money. Now, you don't need to understand how blockchain works to enjoy the benefits. But if you understand, you can go further. Well, do you know in detail how a car engine works? Probably not. But that doesn't stop you from driving a car, enjoying the benefits of a car. It may even be that you drive a car without knowing exactly how the engine works. Now, with blockchain, it is the same thing. You can enjoy certain benefits such as sovereignty of your own data, security, transparency, fewer errors, and the elimination of central points of failure even without understanding all the details of how blockchain works. A lot of people avoid using Bitcoin because they don't understand exactly how the technology works. But that shouldn't be an obstacle. If it were, well, you would never ride in a car or travel by plane. The technical functioning of the blockchain is not even that simple to understand. Many people have tried to explain blockchain in a simplified way without much success. Now, the authors of this book are facing the challenge of trying to explain how the technology works, comparing the blockchain to a database, a ledger, or an Excel spreadsheet. It is something that serves to control data and have records. They begin by saying that, to be effective, this database must be distributed across computers in a decentralized network. It must be public so that it can be viewed by anyone at any time, and it must be encrypted with public and private keys to maintain security. Within a predetermined interval, all movements performed on this network, they are verified, they are released and also stored in a block of data. This new block is linked to the data block that was generated in the previous interval, forming a kind of a chain of blocks that are linked to each other, hence the name blockchain. For someone to change the data that has already been recorded, it would be necessary to rewrite the entire history of that blockchain. But as the data is public and verifiable by anyone at any time, such a change would not go unnoticed. This is easily noticed on the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin network has been running since 2009, and even though it is worth billions of dollars, to this day, no hacker has been able to change the data on the Bitcoin blockchain. Blockchain can be just as important as the discoveries that allowed the creation of capitalism and the nation-state. For many experts, the invention of modern accounting was what allowed the emergence of capitalism and the nation-state. In the same way, the invention of blockchain could mark a new era and allow the recording of practically everything that is of value and of importance to humanity. This includes not only digital money, but also birth certificates, death records, real estate records, educational degrees, insurance claims, votes in an election, food source and records of digital artwork. At this point, it is worth mentioning that not all scholars on this subject share the same view. There are those who believe that blockchain is very efficient for money. After all, that is what it was created for. But that does not bring advantages over centralized systems when we're talking about other applications. If a central authority is not bad for the intended purpose, then it wouldn't be as efficient to be using a blockchain. In other words, it is now known that centralized blockchain makes no sense. If the owner of any network has the power to change the rules of that network alone, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be using a more expensive and slower technology just because it is a fad. In that sense, in that case, it is better to use a private database because the owner also has the right to be changing things and also have a faster and cheaper network to be managing. But now let's go back to focus on what the authors are saying. For them, blockchain goes beyond cryptocurrencies and it has the potential to be used in many other applications where the 4 principles of integrity are needed. These are honesty, consideration, accountability, and transparency. Before blockchain, any transaction required parties to be trusting each other's integrity, or they could choose a third party, a central authority, who would be controlling the transaction. With new technology, trust is the network itself and the assets that are connected to it. Any asset that is not fully trusted will be automatically rejected when they're trying to connect to the network. This ensures everyone's safety. With no need to directly trust other parties or central authorities, blockchain is inclusive. It eliminates barriers to access. In the future, it may be that a company's shareholders and customers will demand that all publicly traded corporations and all public entities have their auditable blockchain accounts. This greater transparency would allow, for example, for companies' shareholders to be verifying that a bonus that has been paid to the CEO of a particular company was truly deserved. Or if the governors, the rulers, are using the public money in a decent way. Despite the potential, there are also risks and downsides to using blockchain. The book doesn't just praise blockchain without any criticism. The authors are also aware that there are risks and disadvantages involved. For example, the amount of electrical energy that is needed to be validating new blocks of data. In the specific case of Bitcoin, which is the only decentralized network of money, this energy is being put to good use. However, in the case of speculative and centralized projects, we can say it is a waste. The book goes along with a lot of ideas about how blockchain technology can be used, but frankly, it is a bit of an exaggeration. In my personal opinion, there is only one viable and useful application so far, which is Bitcoin. We have already explained in detail in the episode number 15 of the Money Arata series. Many of these speculative applications don't necessarily need a blockchain. The authors put blockchain in these possibilities because, after all, it is a book about blockchain. But blockchain is not always the most efficient way to be managing databases, and the developers have to be careful not to want to have this less efficient solution just because there is a hype around it. But the central point of the book is not lost. Blockchain really is a revolutionary creation. Even if it would be restricted just to Bitcoin, the blockchain would still be a revolutionary creation because it created for the first time in history a real scarcity of a digital asset. And remember, you don't need to understand in detail how blockchain works to be starting reaping the benefits of new technologies like this one today. Blockchain is a trusted global platform that is powered by mass collaboration that can be freely downloaded, adapted, and also used by anyone who wants to develop tools for managing digital transactions. Created to make Bitcoin work, this technology is expanding beyond the cryptocurrency market and it has the potential to be used in many other applications, eliminating the need for central authorities and third-party intermediaries. But the main application of blockchain remains Bitcoin. For more than a decade, blockchain has protected the first and largest digital currency ever created with 100% security, even with hackers from all over trying to break into this network at all times. So if you want to participate in the blockchain and Bitcoin revolution, I invite you to take a look at our masterclass of the Diamond Hands course by going to the link arata.se/Diamond Hands.